family, let's get ready to podcast. Welcome back, All Elite family, for another episode of the All Elite podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Kazir, and as always, I'm joined by my boy, Bitter Mark, All Elite AJ. He's still hanging out at the 7-Eleven, but we're here live at the studio, not apartment. AJ, how are things going?
I figured it out. He's Captain America. Kenny Omega is Captain America, and things are going good.
AJ and I were just discussing before the episode started which superhero rather we thought Kenny Omega is most relatable to, and now apparently it's Captain America, despite his, he's a Canadian wrestler who primarily made his name in Japan, but he's Captain America.
I'm talking about personality.
I honestly couldn't tell you which superhero. Maybe he's Spider-Man.
Spider-Kenny?
Spider-Kenny. But I'm doing all right. Honestly, I'm excited. The next couple of weeks we have All Out coming up. AJ, how are you feeling about All Out?
I'm excited. It's getting closer and closer, and I kind of forgot how close it was until you messaged me the other day, and I'm like, damn, it's gonna be right around the corner.
Yeah, I'm all in on All Out. I've got tickets to the show. I've got my StarCast bracelet. Things like that are starting to all get in order. I'm getting ready to go to the Jim Lyman Memorial Tournament as well in Chicago. So me and my girlfriend have a lot of exciting things to look forward to there. I really can't wait. Honestly, this is the first thing of anything of this magnitude I've gotten to go to, let alone a cool wrestling show and a big AEW pay-per-view event. So I'm stoked. And so that's just basically what I've been up to, honestly, just preparing, starting to budget and plan out how I plan on making all of this happen and being able to go to all of these events, and somehow it's all fallen into place really well, so I'm stoked.
Did you spend the $500 to meet MJF or however much it is?
No, but when I saw that, I thought that was funny as hell.
Super funny.
I was able to get a couple of meet and greets for guys like Adam Page and Joey Janela and things like that when they ran a quick little half-off sale on those guys, so I was all in on that as well. So anytime I can get a deal on something like that, I'm all about it. So it'll be cool to get to meet those guys and get some exclusive autographs and things like that. So I'm excited for all that. But we also need to get excited about the fact that NXT and AEW are about to be going head-to-head. It has been confirmed that WWE NXT is going to appear on the USA Network starting apparently September 18th. I'm not totally sure when they plan on starting it. That would be neat because my birthday is in September 18th. So, but I don't know. What do you feel about this obvious battle that WWE is putting forth against AEW's live television product?
I know they're saying Vince McMahon is going to have no involvement, and I'm sure it's going to be still heavily Triple H. But I cannot imagine a scenario where NXT gets on USA and it becomes better. So we'll see. But maybe it will. I'll eat my words. I'm happy about that. And I think it's interesting as hell. But I don't know. And I think it's smart.
It's a great time to be alive as a wrestling fan. That's pretty much what I would consider it. Like, you look at these rosters on these two shows, the things we're going to have to look forward to watching every Wednesday and tuning in and, following. I'm not disappointed at all that it's going to be NXT up against AEW. Maybe if it was SmackDown or Raw, it'd be like...
Oh, that would be bad.
I mean, it wouldn't be too bad still. You'd want to see the competition factor of it. But this is something where I'm actually excited and hyped up about. These are two of probably the most stacked independent rosters when you really get down to it on all of wrestling. Whether it's NXT or AEW, they have the best independent guys from the best companies. Now, you're obviously not getting all of the New Japan wrestlers that you'd like to see, but other than that,
and I'm guessing
what an awesome...
They're going to go with USA, or they are going with USA because they can start a lot earlier, and I think undercutting AEW right now is a smart move. I'm not pro this move just because
but it might be like a bit of a backfire, because if people are used to looking forward to TV on Wednesdays, live wrestling, they'll already be looking for it now, so maybe they'll just catch AEW on the channel flip, you know what I mean?
True.
And so who knows? I don't think it'll be that negative in the whole grand scheme of things, unless the NXT product is really something that's going to blow you away right now. And they do have guys that can do that, especially guys like Matt Riddle, Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, things like that. People who can really blow you away, but from what I've seen with NXT lately, it's not been a bad product, but just the storylines and things that they've got going on, I don't feel like it can compete with the top of what AEW is putting out. It just feels like apples to oranges to me in a way.
Yeah, it really is. NXT is going to be entirely different, and they obviously have the better roster. And I don't mean that to undercut AEW's roster. AEW has a great roster, but they have the better roster. I think what hurts
I think it has the better all-around roster, but when you're talking about top of the roster, the main event scene in AEW knocks NXT's out of the park, in my opinion, just on established name, like credibility, just with Moxley, Rhodes, and Jericho alone.
Not only that, but NXT has a lot bigger roster. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's pretty big. And that means you're managing a lot more people. Not only that, but you have a lot of people who are coming from the Performance Center to get their legs on TV, and that's going to be a whole thing to deal with. So, like, you can't... NXT is still the place to test out new talent. That's not going to change.
And I'll be surprised almost if it doesn't become a place where a lot of SmackDown and Raw guys end up going in the middle of the week anyway, just to show up, and that's where NXT is going to benefit from, because like I said, the top of AEW's roster might be a little bit thicker than NXT's, but when it comes down to the grand scheme of everything, and you're looking at WWE's roster in its entirety versus AEW's, it becomes a little bit more of like their main event scene is just as equivalent, if not better, than AEW's when you really get down to it. So
that's true.
And you can't really argue it, you know what I mean? They just have so many talented people in WWE. It's just a matter of they don't know how to use them. So I think that'll be what it comes down to. But I'm literally just excited as a fan. That's why I wanted to talk about it here, because I am excited. That's something that I hope we'll be doing in the future, is where we're covering and saying, this is what I liked on NXT, this is what I liked on AEW. Because I am in no way like diehard dedicated to one side or the other. That to me is ridiculous. I get why some people do that, I guess, but I don't see a need to do that for me. It's all good for wrestling, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
And what else is good for wrestling is AEW has announced their following two shows. They will be showing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on Wednesday, October 23rd. And then they're going to be showing up in West Virginia at the Charleston Coliseum on Wednesday, October 30th. They've announced these shows after selling out the Boston and Philly shows, so people have this to now get excited about. Do you anticipate them selling out these two shows? What do you feel with these two venues? I think it's interesting the way that they're very clearly touring, and it makes sense, and I'm sure WWE does the same thing, and we just don't look at it so much of this way, but they're very clearly touring that side of the country, and then they'll move on. But like for these wrestlers, and unless they have house shows or something lined up, they'll be working in Philly one Wednesday, get to hang out for a week, and then go to Pittsburgh. So I think that's pretty dope.
Yeah, and the West Virginia Charleston Coliseum, I've been in that arena watching wrestling a lot. I've seen WWE and TNA house shows there, and it's a big arena. It's not huge. It's not a WWE arena, but it's a 13,500. It's bigger than the one in DC. I don't know if it's bigger than the one in Pittsburgh, but it's a big arena. And I don't know if I anticipate them selling out as quick as the other ones. I think they'll probably sell out. West Virginia is a good choice, and I tweeted about it earlier, but it's a really great move because West Virginia is a state that has a good wrestling fan base. Not just that, but it's bordering on Pennsylvania and Kentucky and Ohio. It's near DC. It's so close to a lot. And all those people, it's not a big trip. But that's the thing. That's the one thing here that is confusing me, because West Virginia and Pittsburgh, they're not far apart. Like you said, they're clearly touring. But if you're in Pittsburgh, you can make the 3-hour trip to go to West. I've taken a field trip to Pittsburgh when I was in West Virginia, so that's my reference here. I don't know. That could just mean that when the Pittsburgh show.
Well, the thing about that is, dude, is these tickets are so cheap that if you're a fan, you're going to both. If I'm a fan, I'm going to both. That's where it pays off for them to run these shows so close within their vicinity. The wrestlers don't have to travel as far.
That's good.
They can probably pick up indie shows in that area during the week, probably do one or two or something like that, and then still work the regular shows or make enough money working one show a week that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they're getting to stay in really comfortable places, and I almost have to assume that this is where the owner being affiliated with the Jacksonville Jaguars and these large sporting teams already is they probably already have affiliations with hotels to get good deals for their superstars that WWE probably doesn't even get, because a lot of wrestlers are forced to pay for their own travel and things like that anyway. And these are just assumptions on my end, but you have to figure with the way they're booking this and the way they're setting it up. I mean, yeah, sure, guys could go home, but it's also set up as an opportune way to just stay where you are and travel comfortably.
Yeah, but I think the big thing here for me is just noting West Virginia is ready for wrestling, and they have been for a while. And especially this arena, I've seen it. Basically, I don't know if it was sold out, but it was basically sold out for a lot of wrestling house shows. And WWE would never run this arena because it was not called the Charleston Coliseum up until very recently. It was the Charleston Civic Center. And they don't like running in civic centers. They don't like announcing they're at a civic center. And more importantly, they don't like running that small of arenas. I don't think they've been in anywhere near West Virginia since, like in 20 years. I could be wrong because I haven't been there in a while. Maybe they ran a show there, but I'm pretty sure it's just been house shows for a very long time. But the fans are there.
And in other interesting AEW news, Variety magazine spoke with network executives and asked them to predict which TV series on their network would be the next hit TV series. And the TNT Chief Content Officer and TNT President Kevin Riley had this to say about AEW. He said that All Elite Wrestling is going to be a sleeper hit. It's very counterintuitive to launch a new league at the height of the WWE, but I have a lot of reasons why it makes sense where the opportunity is. We're not taking on the WWE, but I think this is going to be surprising. And I just think that it's interesting to note that TNT executives are so quick to be behind what many people have to believe AEW could become.
I think it makes sense. I've been fascinated this week, and I've been thinking about it in terms of AEW, about the 30-year cycle, and in very short, the 30-year cycle is a thing. There's a 40-year cycle and a 20-year cycle. The 30-year cycle is more in film and television and media, and in general, it's geared towards saying whatever decade was 30 years ago, so in this case, we're going to be entering the 1990s, that's who you're targeting. So you're kind of feeding off of nostalgia and people who might like the kind of thing that was from the 90s or just a simpler time or whatever, that kind of thinking. And you get marketed towards people who are in their 20s and early 30s. And AEW kind of fits that perfectly, which makes sense. That's what ends up happening. It's a marketing strategy. So more and more shows with 90s themes, like 80s Stranger Things, things like that. And so it kind of makes perfect sense. And it's on TNT, and all this started making more sense to me why TNT is doing the Nitro thing so much, and they're doing Tony Schiavone. I think this makes perfect sense from a business standpoint to assume this will work.
And they have to see just the positive reaction that AEW has gotten with being able to sell out these venues so quickly.
Yeah.
Now we have to wait and see if we can transition these fans who are willing to buy tickets into fans that are willing to tune in every week, and we have to see if it's only maybe 100,000 fans in all actuality compared to maybe 500,000 that we would like to see, or maybe even 1 million down the line. And that's where it's really going to be interesting. Those first week numbers, I think, are really going to either blow people away and have people saying, oh, well, that's not a real number, or that's an inflated number, or something like that. Or it's going to be really kind of disappointing as a fan. And that's the way that they've been able to sell out. It makes you almost like, in the early stages, you were like, man, maybe only 100,000 or something. At this point, I would definitely be disappointed the way they've been able to produce with being able to sell out these venues. I mean, and they obviously have time to grow, and we'll have to wait and see. But it's promising to see that the TNT executives and the TNT president, in this case, have such a belief that this is going to be a sleeper hit. Because, I mean, if you're on the outside looking in and you've been paying attention for the last however many years, then obviously you'd have to agree with that. This is going to be a sleeper hit.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. And the stars have aligned very perfectly for everything to go right.
The stars have aligned very perfectly for this to be like a perfect repeat of the 90s. Like you said, that 30-year thing, whatever you're talking about there. It's just crazy to see how it all has been able to repeat itself up to this point. I mean, maybe not perfectly, but you're seeing all of these
similarities
things.
Are there, yeah.
The crazy similarities. When you really start looking at it, it's like, wow, this is an interesting time to be a wrestling fan. And that's what I've been saying for the last however many years since Shinsuke and AJ and all of those guys got signed up by WWE from New Japan.
Yeah. And nobody expected, really, for New Japan to blow up that big, but damn, 2012 rolled around and things just kind of got crazier and crazier. And it just shows that the demand and like I said, people who were fans of wrestling growing up are now having a disposable income and are happy to spend it on the thing that they like.
Yeah, and I think that's a big point of it too, is that there are so many fans that are willing to invest their money into companies that even if it is only 100,000, that's 100,000 paying fans. They've been able to
Yeah.
prove that based upon their ticket sales, and I think that's a really important part. But you have to keep those fans in order to do ad numbers and able to stay on TV. I mean, if those fans are willing to pay to go to those shows, if they're not tuning in and you're not doing the numbers, at the end of the day, the show will get canceled. So. I mean, I don't think, and that's so many years down the road and so much to look into. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's cool that we're getting these sellout shows, but we do have to transition that into proven ratings on TV. Otherwise, it'll only last so long.
Mm-hmm.
But then in other big news, especially if you're a gaming fan like me or AJ who played WWE 2K whatever to 2K whatever for so many years, there's now potentially a new video game in the market. AEW fans were asking on Being the Elite this week if we could potentially see an AEW video game down the line, and Nick Jackson didn't hesitate to simply say, yep, that's something that we can look forward to. Obviously, Kenny Omega being a big video game fan, you have to imagine that this game is going to be of a quality product. But I also was thinking that Kenny Omega is a big fighter guy, so maybe it would end up being more of like a fighter-esque game. I mean, who knows, but it's interesting to see that they have plans for that, and exciting as a video game fan, right, AJ?
Oh yeah, and I'd love a good fighter if that's what they want to do. I mean, they said they didn't want to fall into that simulation, or Kenny Omega said at E3 he didn't want to fall into that simulation WWE video game style, which is totally the right move, because you don't really need that right now. And arcade wrestling games have been around for so long, and they kind of just disappeared, and it's weird, and so to bring that back would be a good move.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see how they could implement the concepts within independent wrestling, where there are so many flips and kicks and more stuff like that you would see in like a Mortal Kombat game or a fighting style game, as opposed
Even
to the
All-Stars,
WWE
like
style and stuff like
'cause
that.
All-Stars in itself was just the 3D version of, I forget the name, but there was a few different arcade and SNES titles that played like All-Stars, just in 2D.
Yeah, and I could also see them just going the road of New Japan and sort of implementing their superstars into the Fire Pro Wrestling game as well. That's something that we've seen happen, and they've also had Stardom wrestlers involved in that as well lately. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think that would be AEW's final game plan, but I do see that being sort of a stopgap in between as they sort of prepare to do whatever it is they're going to do. And it's interesting to see that being confirmed so early on, because that's a process that you would want to see take 2 to 4 years before it even officially rolls out, because otherwise it's going to be no good. And you don't want to see another no good pro wrestling game, because there's enough of those.
Well, and there is the EA aspect to this, where Tony Khan and the Khan family in general obviously have a soccer team and a football team.
So there has to be any kind of, like, even the minimal relationship there. That's how you start working, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and dude, that would be interesting. EA's take, and that's where if AEW takes off in the first couple of months on TV, you could see some real interesting things in that whole situation as well.
I don't think Kenny Omega would be happy with that, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his take would be on that whole situation, but I mean, obviously Kenny's gonna have input on the video game side, but how much input you'd have to wonder. And they have to keep it that way anyway. I feel like you can't you can let the wrestlers have their input, but you can't do everything that the wrestlers want, because yes, it's gotten us this far, but I don't think that's the way to go 100% gung ho down the line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And then just sort of the last bit of AEW news this week, Shawn Spears attacked Cody Rhodes at a C4 wrestling event. It was a charity event in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and they just basically continued their build to All Out. Cody and MJF were facing two locals. MJF was on his way to the back, and he got beaten and attacked by Shawn Spears. Spears then made his way to the ring and attacked Cody Rhodes before he tried to hit Cody with the chair, and Cody was saved by MJF. Cody attempted to hit a crossroads on Spears before Spears escaped to the back. And as you can see if you're watching the video version of this, we have a short clip over here on the side. AJ, did you hear about this? Have you seen it? What do you think?
I did not.
Oh, wow. So you've missed out on a very interesting and cool thing, I actually think. AEW has continued to build this
sounds really
storyline.
good. I have to watch it.
Yeah, watching it right now, Cody Rhodes is just beating the piss out of Shawn Spears, and the way that they've built to this feud and continue to build this storyline between these two guys. I'm excited for this match. I'm excited to be there live for this match and see these two fight. And they've done a good job in the way that AEW continues to use independent shows and independent companies to build what they're doing. And obviously, I anticipate seeing this on the next Road to or being the Elite episode in the future.
Like that Adam Page thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
that's really good.
I mean, and that's essentially what happened. We had the Adam Page, he did the same exact promo that we talked about a week ago on the... Yeah, so I mean, and that's basically what they've done. They've had the shows roll out. They've had this stuff roll out a week early, and then it shows up on the show the next week. So it was really interesting as a fan. Obviously, any fans attending these shows, it's lucky for them to be able to witness this, because it was a cool little moment and a cool little brawl between these two, and just a nice way to continue to set the stage and set the pace for that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That they're just doing, even if it's at the Indies, I just love that they're doing things in a ring.
Well, and the thing is, doing it at an indie that's packed out, and it's going to be packed out for a guy like Cody Rhodes randomly appearing there. It makes sense. It looks like a big fight field. The way that they get video of it and everything, it's genius. Really, it's a really low cost way to make your product look cool. And I almost hope that they keep doing that, especially if they're not going to start running house shows too quickly. And it would almost maybe be a really smart and like in a financial aspect way to go about it. Be like, yeah, go work some independents over the weekend or whatever, and we'll film content and we'll get stuff from that. And then the independents benefit from having people on TV show up on their shows. For sure. So who knows? Obviously, AEW plans to run house shows and do things like that, but I think that the way that they've utilized the independents and continue to work with independents as a large company is genius. Like, WWE does it in such an isolated way with one or two companies per country. So AEW has done it with like 6 different no-name indies that I never heard of up until they've worked with them, and that's made me check them out and be interested in them. So it's been really beneficial for all parties, I believe.
Oh yeah, I think it's such a smart move to just keep working with the indies and keep that relationship open. It only makes them look better, too. It doesn't hurt anybody. It's just all over good.
Exactly. But that really wraps up our AEW news for this week. Let's go ahead and jump into our Road to recap. This is Road to All Out Episode 5. We also got a Road to All Out Episode 6 that we'll cover at the end. It's also just a whatever. Road to All Out Episode 5 opens up with the best friends, and they're just going for a slow motion hug between the two superstars. We then get the regular intro, and then Chuck and Trent sit down for an interview to tell their story, but they can't come up with a good story. So Chuck Taylor just says that they're best friends because while Trent is getting attacked, Chuck wants to help fight his battles. He goes on to say that they joined AEW because of their emphasis on tag teams, and they want to be historic and win the first ever AEW tag team titles. Chuck Taylor then calls the Dark Order spooky perverts, and Trent says that there's nothing wrong with having masked nudie boys, but don't bring them to work with you. They then continue to poke fun at the Dark Order for a minute and say that they damn sure want to be the first ever AEW Tag Team Champions. This was a fun little segment. Chuck Taylor and Trent are such an awesome combination. I never have anything bad to say about these two.
Never once. This is probably my favorite promo out of any Road to. Just actual promo, like a traditional one.
Well, and that's, I appreciate these two guys not being like too full of themselves and trying to do that whole story, because they do have a story. That's the thing that's funny about it, is these two have both been on the independents for 10 years. They both decided to come together and work together, and that ended up getting Chuck a job in New Japan for a while, something he probably never thought would be able to happen. And that's literally his best friend for being able to make that happen. But instead of going that route, they just open up with a big long hug and that type of shit. It's hilarious for these two.
Fun. It's just fun, and it's refreshing.
And the way that they talk shit on the Dark Order, it's so funny. Spooky perverts and masked nudie boys. Don't bring them to work. I was like, this is great. You guys are hilarious.
Spooky perverts is my favorite thing any wrestler has ever said so far.
Exactly, but it does sort of bring down the Dark Order. But at the end of the day, these two are jokesters. That's what their gimmick is, and they did a good job, I guess, at setting the tone for that match and being serious enough to say, yeah, we'll joke around, but we want to be the first AEW Tag Team Champions. We want to make history for this company and that type of thing. So that was good, at least, to come from those two. After that, we cut to Alex Marvez, and he does another edition of By the Numbers. He talks about Shawn Spears and Cody Rhodes, and just them continuing to hype this feud, and that's where it's funny. This is a feud that they've built so much, and that I'm the most interested in because they've built it so much. So I always want to I don't know. I don't want to complain about it because it's all been good, but
we can do so many other things.
Well, and that's where I guess we just have to wait. As we go on, we need to start transitioning these long form stories off of just Cody and the Bucks and Kenny. Because that's where it's been, especially Cody. No offense to him, I know he sort of helps put all this together, but it's been Cody story after Cody story after Cody story.
Every episode.
And they've all been good. So, I mean,
all been good.
That's why when I complain about it, I'm like, oh, man.
It's just a little much.
Yeah, and then after that, they have Adam Page, the promo that he cut that we showed last week. And that was really interesting just to see. Good. Again, they've done a good job, but they did have to censor out him saying cowboy shit. So who knows how quickly we'll get cowboy shit merch. But it was a little awkward, I thought.
It was still awkward.
Having hear it regularly and then him saying cowboy shit.
Yeah, I think if you didn't hear the other one before, maybe it's better, because I didn't like him saying it that much.
Yeah, well, we were hype with it when he said it regularly, but now he says it, and with it being bleeped, it's all right, dork. But it's a good promo by him, and they're doing a good job at continuing to promote it. They obviously have to utilize it so that way the mass audience that they're pulling in for these shows can see it. But
we talked about that, I think, right?
What? That whole promo?
I mean, yeah, no, but that it would be on Road 2, because I think we mentioned
that it was going to show up. The same way we basically figured that the other thing we talked about is going to show up on Road 2, and that makes sense. That's what they're utilizing it for. But, yeah, I don't know. But it's weird because, so when we talked about it last week, we were like, okay, I want Adam Page to cut another promo and continue building up. But instead, we just got this promo again. And I get why they utilized it like that, but it's like, shit, if it had just been on last week's episode, when we saw it a week ago, then we could get a new promo this week. Instead, it wasn't really that. So, I mean, that was my only gripe with it. But
I agree. But, yeah, it was fine.
And then in the last bit of this episode, Kenny Omega opens up. He's talking about how he expected to make a statement during Double or Nothing. He said he had a whole new package built up, but it wasn't good enough. All he needed to do was get past Chris Jericho. And he says that the image of the AEW Championship is burned into his brain. He was supposed to be the chosen one, and he says he has a lot of work to do, and his best performances always come from behind. He's never been handed an opportunity. Instead, it's because he sacrificed something, and he says that he owes Jon Moxley a thank you for inspiring him to evolve, and he says that he would be the one to make Kenny Omega go to the next level. He says that Moxley will be there. He'll be the one who helps show everyone why Omega is called the best. He knows where Moxley is from, his history, and he knows that Moxley is damaged goods, but he says that Moxley wants to make a statement more than anyone. He has to prove that he's ready to fight Omega. Omega says the fans are the winners in this situation, and he closes out the interview saying that he's excited for his path to redemption and Moxley is the first step. That sentence right there made me think he's going to lose because he just referenced that it's his redemption arc, and I don't feel like that's how redemption arcs work.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was a good promo, but it could just be him winning. It's not like Moxley has looked bad so far.
This match is going to be bomb, I feel like.
It's a great promo, and I'm really excited for this match now. That's the big takeaway here, is that this was
I never do the good promos any service when I have to repeat them back for the podcast listeners, and I'm sorry, but this was a good promo by Omega, the way he delivered it. It wasn't anything blow away, but it wasn't a bad promo.
Though.
Oh yeah,
it was good. It hyped the match great. It made me care. I'm glad that Kenny Omega finally talked because it just seemed like
it wasn't that Omega voice anymore.
No, it was serious
that
Kenny.
Omega voice is the worst.
It was all business Kenny. I don't mind it because he sounds like an anime character, and I think that's the point. But yeah, no, it's all business. It's very serious.
Yep, he was very serious, and it, like you said, it made me more excited about this match. I 100% expect this match to be the match where I'm like, okay, this is 5-star Omega again, because I feel like we've been missing that for a while. His match with Jericho wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And outside of that, I mean, he's done these 6-man matches, and those have been fine, but it's been nothing to really remember. And outside of that, what has Omega done since New Japan? Nothing really.
No,
he hasn't had a singles feud going on or anything, so this is the first really huge match where he has a chance to put on an incredible match.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm the most excited for. And they've built it well. They've given each man promo time, and that's all we ask for, really.
This is I really hope, because Road 2 would lead me to believe that, not this Road 2, but just Road 2s in general, that Cody Rhodes is going to be in the main event. Because it's the one that always gets hyped up.
I don't want that to be the main event.
I don't either.
The main event needs to be the championship match.
But why are they talking about Cody Rhodes so much more?
Yeah, that match needs way more.
And why does this match, with so much little build, feel like it's bigger?
Yeah, this match also feels like it's more of a main event. I'll give you that, too.
This is wrong.
And that's where it's weird, and I almost wonder, are they really going to go that route where you're and they won't, will they? They won't. The championship has to go on last. This is their big pay-per-view event. It's what it's got to be, but how do you send fans home
if I didn't know shit about
dude?
Wrestling, if I didn't know a thing about wrestling, and all I did know was I haven't watched wrestling in 20 years, and I'm watching Road 2 because AEW got me excited to be a wrestling fan, I do not think that anything but Cody Rhodes and Shawn Spears is going to main event.
Well, and it's also tough for me because I'm not a big, like, Jericho guy the way so many people are. Like, he's a main eventer to me and stuff like that, but like him being in the main event of that match, and well, like, I'm trying to think about, as a fan going home from the show, Adam Page winning the championship, Jericho winning, like, and that's your main event, So it's like, how do you got to finish off a little bit stronger than that? Whereas at that first show, Double or Nothing, when we finished with Omega and Jericho, we weren't necessarily waiting for that. And maybe that's where the rest of the show being so great, by the main event, if it's good enough, it'll pay off. And I think that's a good thought. But you're right. And it's weird as fans that this main event match, it's not really being promoted the way we expected. So
we talked about earlier how AEW's main event is, like, the roster in the main event is so good. Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Chris Jericho, Adam Page, and I love Adam Page. I think he's great, but does he fit into those names?
If they're in the main event, he's got to steal the show, and it's got to be a 4.5, 5-star match.
He has to. There's no option.
And the thing is that Omega didn't necessarily get that out of Jericho in their last match at Double or Nothing. You know what I mean? So
yeah. It's really tough, and I don't see a scenario where everybody's chanting Adam Page, let's go Hangman at the end of the night. I think if anybody but Jericho walks out and that's the main event, that's a problem.
It'll just feel flat.
I
mean, the Page thing, I feel people getting behind him, and I feel that's building.
Sure.
As a fan, you want to cheer for him, and if you're going to be there live, you're going to want it. But after that, and then, like, the next few nights after that, I feel like is when it's weird. Because I think all the fans there are enough in tune with what they're supposed to cheer for that it would be alright. But after that, you're building your champion as someone that no one really knows outside of your immediate fan base.
It's a big ask. And I'm not saying that it won't happen or it won't work. I'm just saying it's a big ask.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see on that aspect, and we'll have to wait and see. They have to. I mean, I feel like we said this 2 weeks ago, but they have to continue building this Page versus Jericho match. Yep. And I guess that, like, that's where my discussion point comes from earlier. When I saw that Adam Page promo a week ago, I wanted another one this week, and instead what I got was the same one as last week, so we don't feel like we're advancing this story anymore. Jericho hasn't done anything to advance this story anymore. All we really have gotten, in all honesty, is 2 promos from Adam Page to build this, and that's it.
Wouldn't it be better if Jericho ended this Road 2 after that promo from last week?
But instead, what we got was episode 6 of Brandy Rhodes' promo on Shawn Spears, where she discussed Shawn Spears' attack on Cody Rhodes and all the stuff regarding that. So, I mean, dude, we got more Cody Rhodes and Spears build, and Brandy's promo was nice, so
it was good.
You can't knock it, but first of all, it should have been on that episode that we just talked about. It makes no sense to have a whole episode for this. And But they do that a lot with Cody and
They
Brandy. They did that at least one other time with Cody just cutting a whole promo, and that was the whole episode, and that's to me whack. Like you're literally then showcasing that you deserve your own episode. You can't just be a segment on
Right?
the end of episode 4 or 6 or whatever. Like
I
this
think they
has
were
to
worried
be-
about the time, but that seems odd to me.
That's BS if they're worried about the time, because these episodes should be 30 minutes, not freaking 10.
I don't know. Maybe they're worried that people won't click on the episode if it's too long.
I'd rather see freaking episodes where they're like going and seeing guys at the gym and doing shit like that instead
But
of
you know,
what
there's
we've
like an
had
entire
going.
marketing team here going, "Oh, this one should be this long."
Yeah, I guess that's fair, but that I don't think that's. I mean, whatever. I mean, I honestly think it's like a time constraint thing or something like that. So I'm not super pissed about it. But like
It's
I said,
weird.
this really should have just been part of the original episode. Brandy's promo was fine. It was a good. They continue to build this match really well, as I've already said. But that's where we continue to ask for more of a build towards your main event, not just this match or the match that we assume is your main event, because.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a bad week for AEW. We continue to get excited for All Out. Next week we're going to be doing a full rundown of the card for All Out. We'll be doing our predictions. I'll be getting ready to be on my way to Chicago to see the show live, so I'm excited about that. But there's so much to look forward to as an AEW fan. On the podcast here, we do like to point out some of the negative aspects, but that's just because of things that we would like to see presented better or done a little bit better. But in all honesty, there is a lot that we have to look forward to. They have done a lot more over the last month than they did over the first month to build up to All Out as compared to Double or Nothing. So with that in mind, I'm excited for this. I would like to see more of a build for maybe our Joey Janela match as well as our main event, and maybe just some other matches that they plan on doing. But otherwise, they've done a decent enough job, and they've utilized their platforms well enough that I'm not mad about it. I'm really excited for All Out. I can't wait. And these episodes and these shows just seem to be the little bit of add-on to that excitement. And hopefully the TV shows are like an evolved version of this, and that's something that we can hope to see them build on in the future.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But that really wraps up everything here on the All Elite Podcast this week. AJ, go ahead and plug your social media accounts.
You can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy, and you can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ.
You can follow me at All Elite Andy on Twitter. You can also follow the podcast on these social media accounts over there. And you can also hit the subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube, and catch us every week when we post a new episode. And I actually updated the fantasy numbers this week, guys. If you're still paying attention to the fantasy thing, it is legitimately updated. I'm not kidding this time. It's actually done. So we will have an actual victor about a week after All Out. Next week I will run down the actual tier list of what we plan on giving away to first, second, and third place. And so that's something to be excited about. We've got some shit going on there. We've had the time to get it all updated, and I'm excited about that. So that really wraps everything up for us here. Until next week, see ya.
Bye!